Well, we all go a little mad sometimes. Overdue Doctor Who reviews march on, and we have arrived at Asylum of the Daleks. I really like this episode. I feel like I need to put that up front and not even dance around it or be particularly coy, because there are various episodes that I see cited, maybe not all the time, but more often than it could just be a fluke, as like people's least favorite episodes when they're like, oh, well, at least this thing that happened wasn't that one. And usually I like, okay, I get it. Maybe I don't agree, but I get it. When people really take issue with closing time, I'll defend aspects of it, but I get it. People take issues with In the Forest of the Night. I don't think it's as bad as people say it is, or at least my memory of it isn't. We'll see when I get to the rewatch. But, you know, I get it. Kill the Moon. I don't think it really falls apart until the very end, but I get it. Asylum of the Daleks? When I see this one pop up with people just being like, oh, that was so bad. Like, I'm sorry, I don't get it. I think this is terrific. I think this is a great way to kick off after a bit of a stall. We had the end of Series 6. We had the Christmas special. Now we got to pick things up again. I think it works and it's fun and I love the energy. And for all the issues I will have with Clara later on, I do really like Oswin. So, yeah. I'm going to have to defend a lot of aspects of this, aren't I? Well, let's start with one of the big ones that actually kind of comes up right at the front end that I've seen a lot of people cite as a problem. And particularly in regards to like an example of how Moffat doesn't get the emotional side of characters always. And that is Amy and Rory's relationship. The fact that at the start of this episode they are getting divorced, and how there is this focus from the Doctor about trying to repair their marriage and sort of the way that goes down. I've seen a number of objections to this. I've seen people say they just don't buy it, that they split in the first place. I've seen them, and then as a result of that, object to it getting as much focus as it is. See, for me, this ring's actually really, really, really emotionally true. Because, and I'm not going to say that this automatically happens every time, but like the simple fact is that statistically, most couples who lose a child don't stay together. And, you can make your arguments about, well, River didn't die or anything, and they know she's okay, and they know her as well, yeah, but they never got to raise her. They never got the experience of parenting a child. So for all intents and purposes, whether River died or not, and she didn't, but even though River's still alive, they lost their shot at being parents in anything vaguely approaching a traditional way. So the emotional impact on them as a couple is basically the same. And I think it rings really true because the splits that happen over things like that, the breakdown of relationships, of communications between couples, yeah, that tracks to me. And if they're going to go down that path, which again, I think makes a certain degree of emotional sense. I mean, for everything that they have gone through in the tail end of Series 6, yeah, that's going to fray them over time. And maybe the issue some people have is the fact that the split seemed to have happened later, because obviously we knew that 2 years after the Doctor left, he stopped in for Christmas, so they were still together then. Yeah, but we only get a tiny glimpse, and they very easily could have been in not a great situation at the point that happened. Not every split happens one night because of a big blow-up fight. These things can happen over time. And I think if they were going to go that route, which is one that, again, I feel is valid, I think it makes sense to jump in at the point that we're at, because otherwise, well, we'd have to spend at least half a series watching this relationship fall apart. And at least speaking personally, I don't want to watch that. I just don't. And I also don't need to, because I buy it. So that's Amy and Rory. And again, I buy the rationale. I buy the fight that they have, where Rory takes it as a given that he loves Amy more than she loves him. And she sees breaking up with him as letting him go, because she knows how much he wants kids, and she can't have more, not since Melody. And they obviously, again, effectively lost her. So, I buy it. Now, a big part of that is probably sold by the performances of Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill, because they're just great in these parts and they have great chemistry, and they really know how to make these moments work. Because with actors who didn't know how to sell it, yeah, it would fall apart. But for me, that works. The whole idea of the Daleks coming in and basically hijacking the Doctor to send him on a mission that they're scared to do, is it a little ridiculous? Yeah, but it's a fun kind of ridiculous. And that's the thing about this episode. My main thing that I love about this episode is fun. And it manages to be fun without being overly goofy. At least I don't feel it is. Because sometimes when Doctor Who goes for fun, it gets a little bit more in the area of camp. This is just a rollicking adventure. The Doctor's got great lines. I love he's in the Parliament of the Daleks and they're all just going, "Save the Daleks." He's just there. Well, this is new. That's the perfect reaction as far as I'm concerned. I absolutely love that. And the whole thing that goes on in terms of them having to infiltrate, and he gets the banter going with Oswin, and Oswin starts flirting with Rory and then says, well, no, my first crush was named Rory. Actually, she was named Nina. Then she says I was going through a phase, which I really wish she didn't say. The whole idea of bisexuality or anything like that being a phase, something people get over. Some people do have an experimental thing, but it's a phase is such a dead horse. I really didn't love seeing that. But other than that, the general vibe of those interactions, I enjoy. I love that she immediately starts ribbing Matt Smith for his chin and goes after Rory for the nose. So I just have so much fun with this. I have somewhat mixed feelings about some of the things that are done when I put it in the mix in the context of the show as a whole. I think self-contained as a story, I just think this is a great time. However, when we get to things like the Dalek puppets, it's not a bad idea, but it is the kind of thing where I feel like it's kind of a cheat, and it's one of those things that becomes a case of, oh God, the Daleks are either gonna run this into the ground, or we're gonna keep wondering why didn't they do that. And I don't think they handle them in the future overly badly, but it is that kind of element getting introduced into things. It's kind of interesting, but I'm not sure it was worth it overall. And then there's also the whole idea of ending it on the notion that the Doctor has been wiped from the memory of the Daleks, which I would have been down for if they'd stuck to it. Like, that had no meaning. And that's part of my frustration with that is that, the end of Series 6, we had this whole setup of, I've been too noisy, I need to get back to the shadows. And this would have fed directly into that. Now the Daleks don't even remember who he is. And that just doesn't really pan out to be the case. I really am annoyed with the show that it kind of abandoned that edict pretty much immediately. Now, the realization about Oswin being a Dalek who basically has mentally not yet accepted that that is what she is, that for me that worked well enough. I don't know if it works necessarily as a twist. I think I called it not super early, probably about 2 or 3 minutes before the reveal happened, which I don't think is too far ahead of it. So I think it's pretty well handled. And it tracks. Going back and watching it another time, like, no, that tracks. And I like that the hints get dropped into the banter and not a ton of highlights brought to them. You know, souffles. The dog was like, souffles against the Daleks. Where do you get the milk? And then he gets interrupted. You know, it's like, this is a silly conversation. But, you know, there's your clues, there's your hints. I think that's actually well sprinkled throughout the thing. I don't know if part of the reason people don't like this episode, or at least in my interactions, people seem to not like this episode, is possibly because as a season opener, they wanted something a bit more serious. I don't know. Like I said, I just find this episode fun. I find it fun and enjoyable, and I've seen it accused of, like, fan pandering, because it's got all the different kinds of Daleks, and I'm not going to say that necessarily isn't the case, but I know that had, like, no impact on me. I don't think I even spotted the special weapons Dalek until, like, the second time I watched it. So, yeah, I just enjoy this. I find it to be a nice, rollicking adventure that introduces a, in my opinion, superior version of Clara, a version who we understand who she is, the kind of person that she is, between the music that she listens to and what she does in her spare time and the banter that she has with multiple characters. I get such an immediate sense of Oswin. It's something I won't get from Clara later on. But we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. But she's great in this. So, like, for me, the issue was never the actress. It was never Jenna Coleman. It was the character of Clara. But again, we'll get there sooner than I'd like. But I find it fun and entertaining. And they managed to weave what was, for me, an emotionally true story when it comes to Amy and Rory. I bought it. It worked. I enjoyed this episode. There you go. Asylum of the Daleks. You rewatched it lately? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's a bunch of stuff to do. You can support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month is a help. And it gets you early access to select videos, such as the Overdue Doctor Who reviews. And, of course, there's also the usual like, subscribe, share this video around, follow me on Twitter, blah, 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 blah. You also don't have to, because, you know what, at the end of the day, well, you're the council, and I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.